Okay, everybody, today is March 19, Wednesday, 2014, and this is Eric Murakami from Spokane, Washington. I have Eric Dollard on the line from his EPD labs down in the desert of Nevada, and today we'll be doing a little Q&A session on some stuff asked in Facebook, some questions about evolution that were posted in a forum, and maybe a few technical things that were talked about in the thread, in the Eric Dollard thread. One thing I do want to mention before going on to a couple other comments and moving into the forum is that recently with a successful Indiegogo campaign for the Advanced Seismic Warning System, I want to let everybody know that some of the money has finally made it into the account at EPD Labs. And was it yesterday or just a couple days ago that you were finally able to take a $10,000 check down to an office and pay for the $10,000 bond?
Yes, the bond's been paid. The government has its surety bond or whatever they call it, but we won't leave a mess, or we'll do what we claim we're going to do. So we now have we basically have our antenna field and everything is authorized, and we are authorized to proceed to construct our system.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey to get to that point, and I want to let everybody know that today in the mail I'm going to be sending a list of all the contributors to the Indiegogo campaign and the contributors who donated directly to PayPal, so that Eric will be able to start writing letters and we can fulfill all the perks. And so, it's just a matter of logistics of having, getting all this squared away, getting the stuff to Eric, because he doesn't have a computer, so he can't just email it, and we had to wait until the money was finally deposited from the campaign. So if you are wondering what is happening with the perks, it's in the process. We just got to pick out a photograph. Some people are going to be getting an autograph photo from Eric, and some are going to be handwritten letters. I think 2 people are going to be coming to the conference, and we'll be having breakfast with Eric on one of the mornings. And so all of those perks will be honored. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is a couple days ago you had done an interview with Sherry Montgomery with the intellectualradio.com, and there's a Groovy People radio show. And I think the shows are on Wednesday, which is yesterday. I couldn't find the link, so I'll ask her for it. If you're listening to this right now, Eric did do an interview with her, and the discussion was going to be about numbers and astrology and that kind of stuff, considering a lot of the current events going on these days. But instead, I guess she actually wanted to talk mostly about a lot of the, the harassment and defamation and that kind of thing. Is that pretty much what that show is about?
Right.
Okay. So as soon as I get that link, I'll be posting, and that'll be going out on your mailing list. Okay. And I just want to mention, if you happen to be listening to this, that also recently Eric did a interview with Derek from Truth Seeker Music. And if you go to Eric's YouTube channel, which you can find easily by going to ericpdollard.com, and you'll see a YouTube link either in the left column or top right corner. And there's an interview on the supernatural power of music. That's getting a lot of really good positive feedback from everybody watching that. Quite a few views between all the different places where that's uploaded. So if you haven't heard that yet, I definitely recommend go listening to that. Let's see, this is from Jessica Gilbert. Would like to buy Lone Pine Writings in paper, book, form, and not ebook. Could you send me a link? The Lone Pine Writings is just in PDF from which is available on ericpdollard.com right now. The permissions are set so that you can print it out if you want. It only costs about $4 or $5, like at an Office Depot, to have them put it into a comb or spiral bound or something. We do have plans to actually put these in paperback and hardback through like Amazon, Adam Bull Solomon Books Company, and elsewhere. It's going to be a little bit before we're going to be able to get to that, but that is in the works. So right now, you are free to print it out and get it bound yourself if you'd like. Question from Josh. statement. Just waiting for this to be pulled up here. Dear Mr. Dollard, I'm a young engineer from Sacramento studying electrical and mechanical engineering as well as physics and philosophy. I'm currently reading Lone Pine Writings 1 and 2 that I purchased from your website. It's absolutely genius. I'm soon turning 18 in a couple months, and it would be an honor if I could be mentored by the legendary Eric Dollard. I have a lot of insight on the work of Tesla, and you and I try to tell friends and teachers about longitudinal dielectricity, golden ratio dielectric fields, and the creation of mini-stars and galaxies and light bulbs. My teachers are impressed until I talk about the faster-than-light theory. Then they stop and ignore me, saying it's impossible. I'd be honored if you would let me work with you. Please write back. Thank you. Okay, so if you're listening, Josh, if you go to ericpdollard.com in the top left corner, you'll see a Lone Pine address in California for Eric. And if you write a letter and mail it there, that will go directly to Eric, and he can respond back with any questions, or respond to your questions. So I guess that was mostly just a statement, but the question he has is also, have you heard of Edward Leedskalnin, who built Coral Castle, and if so, what do you think about his theory on magnetism and electricity?
I know about it, but I haven't really seen much in the way of a theory that allows for anything to be developed, so I haven't paid a lot of attention to that other than it's just another one of these anomalies that demands explanation. Yeah, it's an anomaly as, how he did what he did. There's nothing descriptive enough to duplicate it or define it. So I really don't pay much attention to things that I can't immediately turn into an engineering reality.
Right. Yeah, it's always been mysterious.
Basically, I don't really pay much attention to any of that kind of stuff because I can't build anything out of it. It doesn't really lead to any greater insight on what kind of phenomena I'm dealing with electricity and all that. It still remains a big mystery.
Okay, this is from Alan Rosser. Hi, Eric. Good to meet you, mate. I appreciate the distinct differences between a Hertzian EM wave that is recognized standard and the longitudinal waves of Tesla, and to a degree from a technical angle, the standing wave scenario that underlies the Alexanderson system. I get what it is that you're saying in regards to the superiority of the utilization of the two latter systems versus the limited functionality of the transverse wave. And this makes perfect sense to me. It's on that page he has on the electric universe theory. Okay, transverse waves. Okay, I have a couple of other observations I think relevant to you that I would like to share at a later date, if that's okay. Alan, if you're listening to this, you can go to ericpdollard.com, and if you want to correspond with Eric directly on these theories and different stuff regarding your work and Eric's work, can send him a letter directly to his Lone Pine address. That's the best way to converse with him on these matters. We're not really set up to where I can actually show him your Facebook page and go through the references and stuff. And if anybody else, has questions like this where Eric's not going to be able to be in front of the computer, which is going to be the case most of the time, it's best to just, send him a letter. Okay, this is from somebody named Steven. Mr. Dollard would like to know if you need any supplies or anything I can send you. Please don't hesitate to let me know. I got your back, man. Okay, Stephen, also you could write Eric a letter and, mention what kind of supplies and stuff that you do have available that you might be able to support Eric and EPD Labs with. Or if you email me a list of that or send me a private message through Facebook, then next time I talk to Eric on the phone, I can go over that with him to see if there's anything that you have that might be able to help him out. Appreciate the offer. Okay, this is from Dennis McGuire. Okay, Eric, I'd like to learn the true nature of electricity. Where do I start? What would be the first book to read, and where do I go from there? I feel it's the most important field to preserve in our society and the most overlooked. I loved electromagnetism and feel many good things would stem from it if only the truer inner workings of it were more understood. Thank you, and never stop pushing for a greater good. So what would you recommend as being the bare basic first book for anybody to start?
Well, that's a good question, because it's all a matter of how much previous knowledge you have in mathematics and basic electrical theory. At that point, usually you go right from there to the works of Steinmetz and Kennelly.
Steinmetz and Kennelly. Now, what is the name? What is the name of each book? Like if you just picked one book from each of them.
Well, Steinmetz produced numerous books and gave numerous lectures and and presentations. And the thing is just to start gathering that stuff up. Kennelly also was another one of these engineering mathematicians that took all the complications and simplified it down to basic form. All of his books are basic and easy to understand, assuming that you understand the mathematics. So before trying to engage in understanding electricity, it's really important that you have a good understanding of algebra. That would be essential.
Okay.
As far as the rudiments go, there really isn't anything. So the Lone Pine writings was an attempt to lay the rudimentary principles of the theory down. A lot of it is you have to start experimenting. The thing to do is to go back and read the writings of Faraday and people like him and start duplicating his experiments. Mainly focus on the experimenters and not the people that would get you involved in all these complicated mathematical theories that just ended up giving us relativity and that kind of mess. So Tesla's writings are instructive, and there's a lot of experiments that can be done there. There's a person by the name of Dr. Lee Bond who has written a couple of books. I think one's The Evolution of Matter, the other one's The Evolution of Force. They're very experimental. The work of J.J. Thomson called Electricity and Matter is based heavily on experiment, and it's easy to understand. That's a good start right there.
J.J. Thomson.
Yeah, J.J. Thomson and his book Electricity and Matter.
Yeah, I think, and if you go to archive.org and you type in J.J. Thomson, Electricity and Matter, you should be able to download the PDF for free. A lot of those old books, the copyrights are expired, and so it's, pretty much free downloads, no problem. And,
Electricity and Matter by Thomson, and Impulses, Waves, and Discharges by Steinmetz, and the Hyperbolic Functions as Applied to Electrical Engineering by Kennelly. Those are three good books to start with. If you don't understand the math or the words in there, then you're kind of on your own to go back and learn those basics before you start on the books. It's not really a subject for the beginner. That's the complication. It's really hard to find a beginning point in this. Either you're in it or you're not. So it's very difficult for me to suggest to people who have no previous knowledge in this whatsoever how to start. I mean, I started when I was 6 years old, and it was pretty much done in a method of lining up with utility companies and doing lots of experiments, and it's that got me to the point by the time I was 18 years old that I could really move forward. But this is not something that you can just do in the course of a month.
Right. Okay. Let's see. We have a comment to you from Raul. Let's see. I don't know anything about anything in science or electricity, but I've been watching your posts at Energetic Forum, and I've watched a ton of videos that are on YouTube with your lectures and interviews. Thank you for blowing my mind every single time. I probably never will be in a lab or become an engineer or none of that, because that's not what I want to do, but I know you're a genius. I probably still part of the society you always describe, but I'm only 22. I'm still finding my way out, and you're helping. So your work, Eric, is definitely having an impact on the younger generation.
That's encouraging.
That's awesome. Okay, so here's a comment or question from Yotam. Hi again, Eric Dollard. I realize you must be backlogged with questions. Nevertheless, I ran into something very recently which I thought might be of interest, and I'd love to hear your feedback if you find it relevant or legitimate to study. Okay, so this is a grid map, and it looks like Bruce Cathy. Do you want to spend a moment and just mention about your insight on the Earth grid?
Well, I've never been much for Bruce Cathy. I think he kind of stretched things way out beyond what was reasonable with his numerology and all the rest of this stuff. But that's not to say there isn't some kind of Earth grid system, but I'm just not really much into Bruce Cathy.
Right. But there are definitely certain points that are more more significant than others. Like, for example, maybe like the Integratron or like the RCA site. Are they supposed to?
Yeah, the Integratron was specifically, that site was specifically chosen to build that structure by using a radioelectric methodology. The same thing with the RCA station in Bolinas and the other four that were put around the world to operate in conjunction with it. The early telegraph sites from the railroad days were put in specific locations so the batteries weren't necessary. They could be run off of the caloric currents that were naturally available at these particular spots. Well, you can see just by the way the vegetation grows and the way the clouds form, there's definitely some kind of network of energies that has a geometric pattern across the surface of the Earth. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Let's see, this is from Bella. Hi, Mr. Dollard. I'm a student of naturopathy and heard you see on YouTube how when you had a friend between speakers at the right frequency and conditions, his back pain went away. Now, I know the pain in the body is caused by accumulation of positive ions, mostly H+, and when one takes bitter herbs, which are negatively charged, pain can go away for a while because the acidity was neutralized. It is one thing to buffer that acidity, and it's a different thing to eliminate the acids. My question is, has the music frequency eliminated those positive ions, or has it buffered them? Thanks for taking the time to consider my question. Kind regards, Isabel. I guess that's
I'm not looking at it in terms of ionization. I'm looking at it in the terms of standing waves. It's more of a mechanical type of phenomenon. But that's not to say that won't in turn induce some kind of chemical changes.
Right. So what kind of analogy would you use to describe to the layman a standing wave?
Well, an example of a standing wave, if you have like a wire between two poles, and then the wind gets to blowing on us, the wire will go into a galloping oscillation, and there will be one point along the wire where there will always be a peak, and there will be another point in the wire where there will always be a node. So a guitar string or a piano string is the same thing. On a guitar string, each string has a different set of mechanical circumstances. It gives it a particular pitch, and that gives it a particular wavelength. So on the guitar, the string has a standing wave on it. So the one part of the standing wave, which is the terminals, doesn't move. That's the current end. And then there's another part where the vibration is very pronounced and visible, and that would be called the voltage part. So that represents a standing wave. So you can set up standing waves in your body and deliver harmonic energy in a mechanical form to basically any point in the body. And then that mechanical force will loosen up any like congestions or buildups or strains. From mechanical level, as far as ionization and that goes, I don't see a direct connection there. But that is part of what's going on. Acid body pH is the primary reason for ill health. Right.
Now with these standing waves, would you say there's a certain wavelength to these different vibrations?
Right.
And, I know from a lot of the research I was involved in with some medical doctors, and it was quite a while back, just looking at a lot of the applications of light therapy, for example, red light, it's about 660 nanometers, and that's about the wavelength of that's the same size as a red blood cell, for example, getting close to like this mitochondrial size, and when it's stimulated, by those type of frequencies that ATP production goes up, and simultaneously these redox signaling molecules are produced, which in turn are important in neutralizing acidity, and they activate the antioxidants. So a lot of that, what you're kind of describing, is directly related to the research in light therapy, what's been found to be happening at the chemical level or biochemical level.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about basically would be called sound therapy.
Right.
And the waveforms in this situation are complex. They're not just simple sine waves like a guitar string. They're compounds of waves that can appear dormant for a very large portion of the cycle, and then there'll be one angle on the cycle where all the waves will compound, and you will get a very sharp transient, and then the wave will disappear again, even though the wave has a period of, let's say, 1/10 of a second. There's only going to be a point of 1/10,000th of a second where the wave is going to manifest. During the rest of that point, it has itself canceled out. The same situation exists in space. You set up a complex waveform. It causes all these pressure and vacuum nodes to appear, like the little, ball bearing on the stick atom diagrams that you see in basic science books. And these things will materialize in your body and move around, almost be like a physical object of their own, and then they in turn impart their physical forces on the body, and then, of course, the body resonates to certain frequencies. It's a complicated situation to define, but what my experience is, it is helpful to expose the body to that.
Right. Okay, this is from Trace. Eric, what do you know about the car Tesla built that was electric? It says back in the 60s, looked like some sort of tube designed to pull energy out of the air.
Yeah, that's been a persistent rumor, but I haven't really determined it to be factual.
It's like some 1930s or something, Pierce Arrow or whatever.
Yeah, that's a story. I think that's something that was hatched up by Arthur Matthews, which really dumped a lot of garbage into the understanding of Tesla. But that's not to say that he didn't do something like that, but that is not anything that I've ran across in my research into Tesla's work.
Okay, so Eric, in the official Eric Dollard forum at energeticforum.com, Sigma88 on March 5th, 2014, started a new thread. It has about 20 or 30-something posts in it. It's used from Australia. And I'm not going to read all those posts. It's just some back and forths between some of the different members on the whole topic of evolution. But I'll just read his first one, and then you can, give your own answer. The title of the question is, why doesn't Eric Dollard believe in evolution? Does he have any evidence to justify his beliefs in a created Earth? I've watched almost all his videos, and he gives explanations and evidence, science for most of what he says, but whenever he mentions evolution, he basically moves on a few seconds later and doesn't explain himself. That is out of character for Eric. I understand that the videos are about electricity and not evolution, but also the creation does sort of, what I've heard from him, fit with the theory of his theory of the universe. So that kind of explains him not covering it through the comments or explanations in the videos. I've only read one Eric Dollard book so far, by the way, so I have not covered his thoughts to know what his full thinking is, basically on this topic. Does anybody know why he believes this? And I think part of this is from, talk of the cosmic induction generator and the formative forces and that kind of thing. So what is your take on the evolution versus creation, or a mix of them, or whatever?
Well, there's all these different components. So, you have a component of evolution and you have a component of creation, but the fundamental force is the creation aspect. So basically it can simply be made analogous to if you have an electric field or a magnetic field or dielectric field or any of these type of things, that matter within that field will tend to organize itself in specific geometric forms. Example is iron filings around the bar magnet from the Faraday days and things that you used to learn in school years ago when you used to be able to learn things in school. I don't think any students ever see any of that now or even know about it. But at any rate, that's basically an example of the formative forces acting on an etheric medium, which in this case is made an analog of a model by the iron filings, which of course are a material medium. So basically, the living objects are like the iron filings, is their constituent parts or their cells or atoms or however you want to look at it, are polarized by these electric forces, and that's what gives everything its specific shape. And the fact that there's an underlying force behind the whole thing is why organic forms are based on a golden ratio of proportionality. So it's actually a pretty easy concept to understand. It's a matter simply of induction and polarization. I came about this understanding, I'm predisposed to the religious view anyway, because I come from a highly religious background, priests and monks and nuns and all that for 800 years. But, of course, as a science student, evolution was made prominent in my mind. But then when I started doing my high-frequency research out at RCA, with plasma tubes, and at the same time was reading a book by Wilhelm Reich called Cosmic Superimposition. And at that point, when I had a galactic form appear inside of a light bulb in a highly organized manner, then at that point I was convinced in creationism.
Right. So you do acknowledge evolution is happening, yet it's guided by these creative forces that are intrinsic within the ether, or
this in my last the 4-quadrant representation of electricity presentation I gave. I got very heavily into the ether and the formative forces and the archetype. So in that video, I'm laying the groundwork for that concept. But the objective there was with the understanding of the Tesla rotating magnetic field and how its motors and generators work and the numerological conditions that describe it. It wasn't strictly, directed at the formative forces themselves or that particular topic. But I did lay the groundwork for it there, and I would recommend finding the book by Wilhelm Reich called Cosmic Superimposition and read it.
Okay, so for the presentation from last conference that Eric mentioned about going into the formative forces is the 4-quadrant representation of electricity. It's in video and book form. To support Eric's work, go to ericpdollard.com. In the right side, you can scroll down until you see the cover for it. And when you click on that, you can either get the video, the recording of the presentation that Eric gave, or a copy of the book, or you can get both, and that's what Eric is referring to. Let's see. Before I get into anything in the forum, I'd just like to mention that if you'd like to meet Eric personally and learn more about his work, he will be at the 2014 Energy Science and Technology Conference. Website for that is energyscienceconference.com. That's energyscienceconference.com. It's going to be at the last weekend of June of this year, the last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Eric is going to be the keynote speaker on Sunday. We'll be finishing off the conference, and then there'll be a kind of like a open discussion panel moderated by Gene Manning. So all the speakers will be taking part in that. And Eric's talk is going to be on the extraluminal transmission systems of Tesla and Alexanderson. And John Polakowski will also have his cosmic induction generator there. He'll be doing a presentation on that, doing demos, and also Eric will be doing some demonstrations on it and explaining how that ties in with his presentation. So that'll be a rare opportunity because I don't know that has actually ever been anything like that's been demonstrated to the public before, has it?
I gave quite a demonstration in Colorado on a lot of this stuff, which immediately got suppressed, so nobody can get any copies of it. The one copy I did have was stolen by AZAB when they came here to the building last April, so no one will ever see that again. Like I say, these people are the active suppression agents. But this, as far as the configuration being turned into the cosmic induction generator from the transmission system that I put together in Colorado, this will be something unique.
Okay. Now that Colorado conference, was that like the some Tesla conference, or was it
that was the U.S. Psychotronics Association. The presentation was promptly suppressed. I gave one the following year to International Tesla Society on the Steinmetz theory of the hysteresis of the ether. That was promptly suppressed. I gave 5 presentations to the San Francisco Tesla Society, an introductory one to kind of give a popular overview of what I'm into, and then I gave a second one that laid the historical and theoretical groundwork for what I'm working on, and then 2 more followed that, basically getting down to the meat of the matter and describing the Alexanderson, Tesla, and Marconi installation in Bolinas and related facilities at other places and how all that connected together. And none of that material will ever be released by the Tesla Society. When Azab was here, he stole the only copy I had of the second one, which was like a 4.5-hour presentation on the history and theories. That's gone. Also, the classified video documentation of the Ramsey installation before it's destroyed, he stole that too.
Okay. Do you know who somebody named August Hund is?
No.
Some German mathematician or something. I was looking at some of these comments in the forum about Verser operators and that kind of stuff.
So what is that name again?
August Hund or Hund, H-U-N-D.
No, that one I haven't heard of.
Okay, what is your comment on this? This person, Tenaus. I'm sure when Eric is speaking of versors, he isn't talking about actual versors, which were used in the late 19th century and were an algebraic form of quaternions, which aren't used today in any respect, or used in electromagnetism for that matter. Instead, Eric is once again confused by terms and definitions. He's actually talking about phasors, a method which Steinmetz pioneered and a method still often used today. With all Eric's praise of Steinmetz, one would think he would realize what we call this math.
Well, it sounds pretty backwards. So, I mean, I pretty much presented my ideas on the Verser algebra. Steinmetz actually kind of misused it. We have to pretty much go back to the work of Alexander McFarlane to understand how I'm applying the situation, and then take that from McFarlane to Kennelly, and of course, Steinmetz's application. And then it gets into a more modern mathematical theory of alternating current called symmetrical components. So this is basically how I'm presenting the Verser situation. I would say that my definition of Verser matches McFarlane's closely and is pretty much exactly as what Arthur Kennelly viewed it as. And if you think it's something different and you don't like it, well, then use something else.
Okay, fair enough. What about this statement that Eric has made the same mistake with his definition of dielectric, since before Maxwell, we've defined generally a dielectric as a material which is easily polarized by an electric field. Eric, however, only listens to Steinmetz and thinks a dielectric is what modern physics calls the electric field. In fact, he is so bigoted about his belief he ignores Heaviside, Maxwell, Tesla, and others' use of electric field, most of whom made much greater contributions to electromagnetism in theory than Steinmetz.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of the same routine. I don't know if I even want to say much about it, really.
Right.
So the thing about Steinmetz is, and the reason why I focused on Steinmetz, is Steinmetz was the one, with the assistance of Kennelly and Heaviside before him, that rendered electricity engineerable. So I stick with the concepts that make electricity engineerable. Physics can't engineer anything. I could go grab one of the world's brightest physicists and drag them to Lone Pine and sit them down in front of the foreman of L.A. Department of Water and Power, who ask them to design a 12 kV power line or a 4 kV power line to go from one end of the town to the other, and they would not be capable of doing it.
Right.
So, let them whatever they want. If you don't like the material that I'm providing, well, then don't get involved in it. I'm not making any of this stuff up myself. I'm building upon the framework that these people built before me.
Right.
And I am also one of the biggest critics of Steinmetz, too, because the dimensions are never resolved in his equations. He leaves things out. There's assumed partial differentials. There's things made, unit value that causes their dimensions to be lost. It's virtually impossible to go through his work and retain a set of dimensions that align up properly. But, everything has its limitations. Tesla had his limitations, too.
Right.
So that's the way it was. This is not, electricity is not something that's understood. These are our approaches. I'm an electrical engineer. I have to make things that work. If the light doesn't ring or the light doesn't light up or the telephone doesn't ring at the end of the day, I don't get paid.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Well, obviously, with these type of statements by, certain individuals, they haven't done their due diligence to actually research what your work is about and what you have stated about it, because some of what you mentioned has been, sprinkled through a lot of your work for years, it looks like, so.
Yeah, I've always been very conservative in this, because of the situation, like, it's been exemplified by this particular individual, that I don't make anything up. I'm going back and building upon the foundation laid by 3 or 4 very, prominent electrical workers.
Right, and you're talking about like the math models and stuff, but I mean, you definitely have, invented plenty of things building from those devices so that, people have a distinction that you're not saying you invented it out of thin air, but you have actually had your own innovations as well.
Yeah, I have, my improvement on the Alexanderson antenna, my improvements on the Tesla transmission and networks that I've developed, and these things are basically on a discovery level, and my mathematical understanding has allowed me to come across these discoveries. I mean, the math is valid on that standpoint. It's not something that the math I didn't invent. I just took the materials that were available for me that, I picked up the trail to Steinmetz and then worked back all the way back to Pythagoras and, and I made my presentation on it. If you don't like the terms or words that I use, well, then you have to go back and blame the people that made them up.
Right.
And one thing that's going to be a continued conflict here, and this is what's evidenced right now, is my work unnerves the physicists, because basically physicists have no business getting involved in electricity. The physicists want to believe that they've figured out the key to the universe and that they have an explanation for everything, and they don't. Their efforts are best to build weapons of mass destruction for the government, and they really have little other use in society. So I think that just wraps that right up.
Okay. Well, I think we can just end there. There's a lot of technical discussion about the math and stuff like that I wouldn't do it justice, relaying it.
Well, that's right. Especially people, if people write me my general delivery address,
sure.
And, sometimes if the stuff is sometimes so basic that you could get it out of, a boy's book of electricity, then I'm not going to answer it, or if it's too absurd, I'm not going to answer it because, I do get a lot of letters. And it does take me a couple of days. I enjoy doing it, but the thing is when I laid the groundwork for this in the beginning with those symbolic representation papers that I wrote, back in the days, of the shipyard and previous to that when I lived on the street, there's about 50 references in there.
Mm-hmm.
And those references can all be gone back to. So if anybody wants to arrive at the understanding that I've arrived at, you can go back to all those references, and you can spend the decades like I did hashing it all out, trying to get somewhere with it.
Well, I'd just like to say to, this particular individual, Tenhouse, with his...
Oh, that guy again, Tetanus.
Yeah.
Oh, Tetanus is back. Oh, yes, he is a physics zealot. That guy is so overt that I published a series of writings which have finally been collected on why, with the change in situation at the Wardenclyffe site in New York, that Tesla's transmitter would never be allowed to be built, which has turned out to be true.
Right.
It's a rather lengthy writing that described specifically what the forces are against this name, rank, and serial number, and Tetanus's original diatribe was so overt that I actually use it as an example. I'm glad that he did that for me to show the mental pathology of these people and the fanaticism. It was stunning. So I don't really, I don't even want to answer those people's questions or talk to them. There's no point in it. There seems to be plenty of other people around that are looking at it the other way. Also with my imaginary number and inverser theory, it's going somewhere, and I have a whole new book coming out on the subject right now. Right. That I found quite exciting to produce. I learned quite a bit from it for myself, trying to get this polyphase map thing hatched out, because the theoretical basis for it has never really been established. Yet everybody's out there using it, and they're using it incorrectly, and they don't know how to make the transformation from delta to Y connections, and they don't know how to do it for higher order systems. At any rate, I just produced quite a book on that.
Yeah, and some of these people, well, not some, almost everyone who, make these claims and try to debunk everything, they're always doing it anonymously, and they don't have the guts to put their name to it so that we can see who's making these statements. But
well, maybe what they should do is they should in turn write their own papers and books on the subject, if they have that ability. That's the way it used to be. Right now, in preparing for my upcoming presentation, is I always start any new major presentation off by reading E.T. Whittaker's book called The History and Theories of the Ether and Electricity. And it's nothing but conflict the whole way. And no really solid theory has ever been worked out. During the years of natural philosophy, that ended in 1900, but before that, particularly the day of Faraday, it wasn't all this blind attack of one person's ideas against the other. It was more coordinated. But now, physics is a state science with Al Gore as the Pope, that's running this para-religious notion of E equals MC squared. And it's just like Azab and the rest of those people. You'll never get anywhere with them. Uh-huh. There's no point in even talking to those people. I'm going through Whittaker's book, and he approaches it from the mathematics standpoint. So, a lot of stuff gets left out. I think the mathematics went totally overboard, and it just became an obsession. And now the physicists are married to, their overboard obsession. But every one of these famous people, their theories had, major holes and flaws, and then, somebody else would point this out and that out. It wasn't just all this vehement attack against somebody that, that was trying to introduce some ideas in the situation that were, in accord with the general view to some level. But now, because it's a religious and, and a socialistic thing, well, then that's how you arrive at people like Tetanus. Sincerely. The socio-psychological standpoint, it's fascinating to study these people's pathological behavior, all of them. Azab and the rest of them, these are, deranged organisms. It's a fascinating study. you can spend your whole life on it. Wilhelm Reich did. But that's not my profession.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up there. Appreciate your time in answering these. I know people are always excited when they get a chance to hear from you. I know it's not always easy. Where somebody with a computer is not there in front of you to be able to go through the forum and that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to do that when I can. And we can look forward to that one interview coming out with Cherry Montgomery on the Groovy People Show at intellectualradio.com. And I'll post this up on YouTube as soon as I get it put together. This is split between two calls, so they weren't over an hour apiece, and take it from there. So
yeah, I think out of all the recent interviews, I think one of the most successful one was the one on the power of music.
Yeah, that's getting really good reviews, and a lot of people are talking about that. There was a little bit of conversation about that in the Eric Dollard thread. But you'll get a chance, next time you're in front of a computer, next time I see you or somebody else, we can, put you into the forum and you can go through there and type some responses in there. There's been a good amount of activity since the last time we were online together.
Well, fortunately, because of the fundraising campaign, there's a lot of my efforts starting tomorrow are going to be dragging telephone poles and stringing wire and all that type of stuff. So I will be pretty much out of this for a while until we'll probably see each other around mid-May.
Okay.
Otherwise, at least on at worst case on a monthly basis, if sometimes it's a little closer, but I pick up all my mail and when people write me letters, I write them back. That's the way to interface with me.
Okay. Is there any final thoughts or statements or anything that you have to everybody before we? Yeah,
I don't. Other than express my irritation with this EricDollard.com flypaper routine. I'm really requesting the public's help to help me eradicate that.
Right. Well, if anybody wants to donate money to a legal defense fund for Eric, there is the addresses in the top left corner of ericpdollard.com, and because legal remedies are being pursued. So, all right, Eric, well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. I know everybody's going to be excited to hear from you again, and I'll let everybody know on Facebook who asked questions. I'll just give them a link to the this recording so that they can listen to your response to them directly. So with that, have a good journey over to Lone Pine, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks for everything, Eric.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, yep, take care. Okay, everybody, today is March 19, Wednesday, 2014, and this is Aaron Murakami from Spokane, Washington. I have Eric Dollard on the line from his EPD labs down in the desert of Nevada, and today we'll be doing a little Q&A session on some stuff asked at Facebook, some questions about evolution that were posted in a forum, and maybe a few technical things that were talked about in the thread, in the Eric Dollard thread. One thing I do want to mention before going on to a couple other comments and moving into the forum is that recently with a successful Indiegogo campaign for the Advanced Seismic Warning System, I want to let everybody know that some of the money has finally made it into the account at EPD Labs. And was it yesterday or just a couple days ago that you were finally able to take a $10,000 check down to an office and pay for the $10,000 bond?
Yes, the bond's been paid. The government has its surety bond or whatever they call it, but, we won't leave a mess or we'll do what we claim we're going to do. So we now have we basically have our antenna field and everything is authorized, and we are authorized to proceed to construct our system.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey to get to that point, and I want to let everybody know that today in the mail I'm going to be sending a list of all the contributors to the Indiegogo campaign, and so as soon as I get that link, I'll be posting, and that'll be going out on your mailing list. Okay, and I just want to mention, if you happen to be listening to this, that also recently Eric did a interview with Derek from Truth Seeker Music, and if you go to Eric's YouTube channel, which you can find easily by going to ericpdollard.com, and you'll see a YouTube link either in the left column or top right corner, and there's an interview on the supernatural power of music. That's getting a lot of really good positive feedback from everybody watching that. Quite a few views between all the different places where that's uploaded. So if you haven't heard that yet, I definitely recommend go listening to that. Let's see, this is from Jessica Gilbert. Would like to buy Lone Pine Writings in paper, book form, and not ebook. Could you send me a link? The Lone Pine Writings is just in PDF from which is available on ericpdollard.com right now. The permissions are set so that you can print it out if you want. It only costs about $4 or $5, like at an Office Depot, to have them put it into a comb or spiral bound or something. We do have plans to actually put these in paperback and hardback through like Amazon, Adam Bull Solomon Books Company, and elsewhere. It's going to be a little bit before we're going to be able to get to that, but that is in the works. So right now, you are free to print it out and get it bound yourself if you'd like. Question from Josh, or statement, just waiting for this to get pulled up here. Dear Mr. Dollard, I'm a young engineer from Sacramento studying electrical and mechanical engineering as well as physics and philosophy. I'm currently reading Lone Pine Writings 1 and 2 that I purchased from your website. It's absolutely genius. I'm soon turning 18 in a couple months, and it would be an honor if I could be mentored by the legendary Eric Dollard. I have a lot of insight on the work of Tesla, and you and I try to tell friends and teachers about longitudinal dielectricity, golden ratio, dielectric fields, and the creation of mini stars and galaxies and light bulbs. My teachers are impressed until I talk about the faster than light theory. Then they stop and ignore me, saying it's impossible. I'd be honored if you would let me work with you. Please write back. Thank you. Okay, so if you're listening, Josh, if you go to ericpdollard.com in the top left corner, you'll see a Lone Pine address in California for Eric. And if you write a letter and mail it there, that will go directly to Eric, and he can respond back with any questions, or respond to your questions. So I guess that was mostly just a statement. But the question he has is also, have you heard of Edward Leedskalnin, who built Coral Castle? And if so, what do you think about his theory on magnetism and electricity?
I know about it, but I haven't really seen much in the way of a theory that allows for anything to be developed. So I haven't paid a lot of attention to that, other than it's just another one of these anomalies that demands explanation. Yeah, it's an anomaly as, how he did what he did. There's nothing descriptive enough to duplicate it or define it. So I really don't pay much attention to things that I can't immediately turn into an engineering reality.
Right. Yeah, it's been mysterious.
Basically, I don't really pay much attention to any of that kind of stuff because I can't build anything out of it. It doesn't really lead to any greater insight on what kind of phenomena I'm dealing with electricity and all that. It still remains a big mystery.
Okay, this is from Alan Rosser. Hi, Eric. Good to meet you, mate. I appreciate the distinct differences between the Hertzian EM wave that is recognized standard and the longitudinal waves of Tesla, and to a degree from a technical angle, the standing wave scenario that underlies the Alexanderson system. I get what it is that you're saying in regards to the superiority of the utilization of the two latter systems versus the limited functionality of the transverse wave, This makes perfect sense to me. So I'm at a page he has on the electric universe theory. Okay, transversely. Okay, I have a couple of other observations I think relevant to you that I would like to share at a later date, if that's okay. Alan, if you're listening to this, you can go to ericpdollard.com, and if you want to correspond with Eric directly on these theories and different stuff regarding your work and Eric's work, can send him a letter directly to his Lone Pine address. That's the best way to converse with him on these matters. The contributors who donated directly to PayPal, so that Eric will be able to start writing letters and we can fulfill all the perks. And so, it's just a matter of logistics of getting all this squared away, getting the stuff to Eric, because he doesn't have a computer, so he can't just email it, and we had to wait until the money was finally deposited from the campaign. So, if you are wondering what is happening with the perks, it's in the process. We just got to pick out a photograph. Some people are going to be getting an autographed photo from Eric, and some are going to be handwritten letters. I think 2 people are going to be coming to the conference, and we'll be having breakfast with Eric on one of the mornings. And so all of those perks will be honored. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is a couple days ago you had done an interview with Sherry Montgomery with the intellectualradio.com, and there's a Groovy People radio show. And I think the shows are on Wednesday, which is yesterday. I couldn't find a link, so I'll ask her for it. But if you're listening to this right now, Eric did do an interview with her, and the discussion was going to be about numbers and astrology and that kind of stuff, considering a lot of the current events going on these days. But instead, I guess she actually wanted to talk mostly about a lot of the, the harassment and defamation and that kind of thing. Is that pretty much what that show is about?
Right.
Okay.